All right, thanks Caitlin, and hello everyone. Welcome to the GP 2018 product tour. We kind of assume that most people on the call have not seen Dynamics GP. So if you're an existing user and you're joining us to just kind of see what the new version looks like, that's perfectly okay. But you might see some things that you already know about, and so just keep that in mind. But I will talk a little bit about things for existing Dynamics GP users as well. So some of those, when we talk about upgrading and so forth here in a minute, I try to at least make sure that if you are an existing user somewhere, that you kind of know what GP 2018 is about. So with that, let's get into the content here. And I've only got about 4 or 5 slides, and so we're not going to be spending too much time with slides. The rest of it will be actually in the Dynamics GP software. So here, if you're going to run Microsoft Dynamics GP 2018, you need to have at least Windows 7 or later. So I think most people, that's probably not a problem, but you can't come with Windows XP and want to run the software. So Windows 7, 8, 8.1 or 10 are all the supported operating systems here. For Microsoft Office, up in the top left corner there, a somewhat current version of Office, so 2013, 2016. Of course, anything newer, if you're on Office 365, as they continue to update that, that's going to work. But you don't want to get too old on your Microsoft Office. If you do have Office 2010, it works, just some of the features might not be available, but it does work. If you're going to print invoices off in Word or purchase orders off in Word, you might have some problems. But so just kind of keep that in mind. And then Adobe really is the kind of only official supported PDF creator. That doesn't mean that the free ones won't work in most places, but if you do try a free one and you have some issues, Adobe is kind of the one Microsoft really supports from the Dynamics GP side. I always tell people, go download one of the free ones and see how far you get before you go buy the Adobe version 10 or Adobe X, as we call it. So you can put this on a virtual server environment. So of course, Microsoft supports their own virtualized products. So the Hyper-V virtualization systems are the ones that are supported. Again, kind of like the PDF situation, that doesn't mean that it won't work on any other virtualization system, but the one that's supported is Microsoft's own. But of course, if you have VMware or any number of the probably 50 of those that are out there, I've personally not ever seen one that GP wouldn't run on. So just this is kind of the official position of Microsoft. And you do need SQL 2014 or later. So SQL 2014, 16 or 17. SQL 2014 is going to be ending support here well, before the end of this calendar year. So unless you already own 2014, I wouldn't necessarily suggest going out and buying that, because you're gonna be off support here pretty quick. So you should stick with SQL 2016 or 2017 if you have to make that purchase. Of course, you can host this in Azure or any other third-party data center that you might have a relationship with. So you might decide to just make this someone else's problem and not have to worry about the SQL versions. And then the last piece really is, how do I get there? So if you are an existing Dynamics GP user, if you're on GP 2013 or earlier, there's not a direct path to get to 2018. Of course, you can do kind of in between jumps or hops. And so if you're on 2013, which we still have a lot of people on, we can easily get you there. We just have to go to either 2016 or 2015 and then on to 2018. And so if you're on 2015 or 2016, you want to be on at least one of those versions you see on the screen there, and then you can go directly to 2018. If you're on 2015, but let's say it's an older version than the 14.00.0898, then we would have to service pack your 2015 to get you to at least the 0898 and then on up to 2018. So not a problem, not a big deal really at all. It's just if you're on 2013 or older, you can't just go direct. But again, that affects a lot of people, so it's not a problem to make those in between jumps. No worries at all. Okay, so let me close out the slides and get rid of that. All right, and so we'll be back to the screen here, and now you should see my Dynamics GP. And so I've logged in here. I'm kind of an administrator, so I've got really no security being applied, so keep that in mind that there's not really any restrictions here. I've got access to everything. The first place I kind of want to visit a little bit is my home page, and my home page really is just my own personal menu system. And so those things that you do on a regular basis, on a daily basis, you can put onto your home page and then execute certain things directly from your home page. And so you see a number of things here. Let me scroll down and you see even more. There we go. And so kind of the Windows 10, Windows 8 type look and feel and some of the tiles, and then some other dashboards and reports and so forth down on the bottom of the page. And so let's just kind of start up at the top here. And so if you are an existing GP user, then again, some of this you might already know, but you might pick up a tip or two if you haven't explored some of these parts of your homepage. So the to-do area really is kind of my area where the software is telling me when I need to do something. And so, yes, I could go run reports and get a lot of this information. I could go look at windows and run inquiries and kind of do things what we'd call the old-fashioned way, where I have to go get the information. That's certainly still available and acceptable. But a much more modern way is to really have the software tell us what's happening. And so, for example, here I see I've got some hyperlinks really as I hover over these. So you'll see I've got customers over their credit limit, and I've got 7 of those. And so when I click on that, that actually opens a little ad hoc query tool called SmartList, and I can see, in fact, those customers that are over their credit limit. And so from here, you know, this is good. I can see the information. I don't have to go run a report and say, gee, I wonder who might be approaching the credit limit. I can get the system to kind of tell me that automatically. And, you know, if I want a list of things here, I could print this off to the screen or printer, or I could export this out to a file if I wanted to, anything that I see kind of in the window here. And so that's kind of helpful, but that doesn't really fix the problem. That only tells me that I kind of have a problem. And of course, I have the Excel functionality type built into my SmartList, so I can sort here by any of the columns that I would like to, if I wanted to sort by state, for example. Mine are kind of all over the place there, and I've even got one without a state, so that's not going to work very well. But more importantly, I might want to take some action on this particular list. And so I can use Microsoft Word here to send a letter out. In this case, it's customers, but I could do this if it was employees or vendors that I had up on the list, and I could prepare a letter here. And so I'll just grab a customer letter, and the software comes with about, depending on which modules you use, with about 40 or 50 of these letter templates. And so here you see the letter templates that are available to a customer. And so I've got an adjustment to the credit limit, I've got an original, and I've got one called new. Now that one called new is one that I changed up, and so I edited one of these, and the rule is, like most everything in the system, you can edit any of these you like to your own personal preferences. You can use them exactly the way Microsoft has put them together, or you can just ignore what Microsoft has done, and you could create unlimited letter templates of your own. And so most people do kind of copy and use the templates that are there and then build out their own, kind of like I did with the new here. And so let's just print mine. And this is everybody on the list I'm going to get a letter for. Well, you know, maybe you don't want to send a letter to these guys, so I'm not adjusting their credit limit. I'm only adjusting the first 4 up here, it looks like. And then how do you want that letter signed? And so, of course, I've already pre-filled in my name and title here and contact information and so forth. And so as I do this, it takes just a few seconds, and we're getting a mail merge now to happen between my Microsoft Dynamics data and the template. And so you can probably see the edit that I've made to the template. One is I added a logo, just added the Dynamics GP logo up here. So of course that would be your company logo if you like. And that's really it. And so the rest of this is all boilerplate, and we're just pulling the text that Microsoft has built. But again, you can change any of this up if you don't like what they've done, or you can have multiple flavors of a template, so you don't have to have just one. But I'm telling these folks that, hey, we looked at your account. Obviously, we're letting you go over your credit limit anyway, so you must be somewhat okay of a customer. And so we're actually just saying we reviewed your account, and we're upping your credit limit, and pulling in as a variable the new limit. And of course, that's being pulled back from my customer setup inside of my Dynamics GP system. And then of course it has my signature down here. And I'll get 4 letters because I had 4 of those customers ticked off out of the group that were actually over their limit. And so there they are. And so here it's Microsoft Word. You know, for some reason I wanted to make some personal edit to this document. I could, you know, maybe something that I wanted to put specific to this particular customer, country, view estates. And that, of course, doesn't affect the other letters because these are individual Word documents at this point. So I can print these off or fax them if people still fax, or you know, save these off and email them or drop them in the mail, or however I communicate with these customers. And I have that ability to change up these documents further if I need to, and then send those along the way. And so that's kind of a simple example using Microsoft Word. But if we take a kind of peek behind the curtain here, so to speak, you'll see all the different areas that I can actually go in and pull data from. And so flipping maybe over to vendors here real quick, you'll see I've got a number of things within each module or each series of the software. And keep in mind, I don't have any security being applied, so I can get into all of this. Not everybody has that luxury in real life. And so here I've got a number of vendor tasks here that I might want to complete. And so I'm just going to grab the demographics here. So just kind of the asterisk. And that's just a kind of a name and address, phone number type list for my vendors. Well, this might be helpful if I was sending out a holiday card or some kind of a announcement, maybe my contact information or number, phone number, fax number, whatever might be changing. I could do something like this. This isn't really very helpful the way it is, but I do have the ability to control the data that I see. So maybe I don't need phone number on there. I don't even need vendor ID. I only know them by name. And then I want to add some things. And again, I have unlimited security here. So maybe I want to pull in, you know, the 1099 type and maybe what I've paid them this year. And then I want to see maybe if I have their tax number. And so if I go down alphabetically here and see there's the tax ID number. And so I can pull those onto my report or my query here. And you know, tax number is kind of what I'm after. So I'm going to move that right up here by vendor name and see, do I have what I need? And so here's kind of a mishmash of data. And of course, I have a lot of vendors that are not 1099 vendors. And so I can use the search capability in the SmartList, and I can put up to 4 different layers of search here. And so I might want to say, is the 1099 type, and I'm going to say, you know, I can set this to equal to or unequal to or greater than or between, whatever it might be, to search out the data. But I'm going to say, do I even have a 1099 vendor here? And then if I do, have I paid them any money? Because I might have a a vendor that maybe I just haven't used much. So I'm going to use kind of the is greater than and put the 600 in there, which is kind of the requirement for sending a tax form. And then I want to see, do I have their tax ID number? And so that's kind of what I was ultimately trying to get at. And so I'm going to say if that field is equal to, and I'm just going to leave it blank, it should be something, but if it's not, I want to know about it. And so when I kind of click OK and the data is kind of requeried back, I can see here I have some problems. And of course, I could do the same thing like I did with the customers. I could send out a vendor letter here, and same rule applies. This is what comes out of the box. I happen to know there was a request for a W-9 form in there, so I could send this to them with the letter template and have them give me their federal tax number, and then they would drop off the list once I put that back into my dynamic system. And so I won't go through that process because it works the same way as what we did with the customers. But the last thing here, if you wanted to pull kind of more hardcore accounting data, and so if we go under maybe financial and let's say account transactions, and just kind of get a dump of the general ledger type. And again, I can sort this very quickly by debits and credits. You'll see I've got a lot of years in here. I could use the search feature to kind of parse that down. But if I wanted to bring that out into Excel to do something further with, so maybe I sort my list and kind of have the data that I really want, you'll see that in just one click, really, this actually exports over into a nicely formatted Excel spreadsheet. And I do have my decimals set up to 5 places here, so most people don't let them go that large, but I do. And once I'm in Excel, you know, I do anything that I would normally do in Microsoft Excel. So if I wanted to total this up and further kind of slice through it or make a chart or a graph or something, I have that capability. So so pretty good interaction with Microsoft Word and Excel and kind of the SmartList kind of ad hoc query tool here. And so that's kind of what this area is up at the top here. So I've got some tasks areas, or one task area with maybe several tasks. I don't have any tasks that I need to do, but I could actually record one. And so I could set a task for myself and just kind of type in there whatever I wanted it to be, and of course assign that, you know, back to me and put a due date on it. I could also assign this to another user in the system, and so maybe the boss wants to give you something to do if you're not the boss, and assigns you a task, and then they leave for the holiday week next week, and you come in Monday and find out you've got a whole bunch of work to do that you didn't plan on doing, and this is a sneaky way to get that to happen. And so you can link to a specific window in the system. So if you want to direct a person to maybe an area they're not familiar with, and you want to direct them right into the spot that they need to do something, you could do that. Of course, put a web page or a link to some external. So if you say, hey, could you update this Excel file for me by Tuesday, you could actually put a link then to where that file sits out on a network share somewhere. And then all that user has to do when they see this task that you've given them is to click on the link, and it takes them right to the file. And so this is kind of a handy area. Not a lot of people use it for whatever reason, but it is kind of a handy area, especially, you know, for people that are inside of the software. So a lot of times you just send an email to someone, but this is an option that's in Microsoft Dynamics. So the final area in my to-do list is any workflow tasks that have been assigned to me. And so here I've got a purchase requisition that apparently needs approval. And so I can click on that, and that takes me back to where someone actually entered a requisition. And the heading's taken a few seconds there to populate. The workflow does tend to slow my laptop down a little bit, so you see kind of why we have servers instead of laptops to run robust software. And so here's a requisition that's been entered by someone. Now the reality is I actually entered this myself, and I'm the approver since I'm the only one here. And you know, normally this would go on to someone else to approve, or maybe on to 5 or 10 other people to approve. And often that approval is done through email. It's rare that the approvers are actually Dynamics GP users. I happen to be, so I can send it back to myself and it shows up on my home page. but many times this is going out to someone that's not otherwise in the accounting system, and so they'll get an email with the ability to approve it or reject it, or maybe they need to forward it on and delegate it off to someone else. And so we do all of that through an email link. But I'm the approver today as well, and so I can see it here. It showed up on my home page to approve, so I can take a look at the requisition, and if for whatever reason I want to print off a copy of the requisition. Hopefully you're not doing too much with paper anymore, but there is a report here that you could print off if you just need to get something on paper for whatever reason that has the requisition information on it. And so, I have the option here to edit this since I'm the approver. You'll see up here the workflow status is saying that it's pending approval, and so I can come up to under the workflow button and I can approve it, I could reject it, or delegate it off to someone else. And keep in mind, I can do that exact same thing if this gets sent out in an email to the approvers. We do not have to have the approvers logging into the ERP system. It just so happens that I am in both places here. So I won't actually approve it because it's just it's me, but full workflow capabilities around requisitions and purchasing and invoice approval and so on works really exactly the same way. And that'll sit there and it'll time out after a few hours, and I have it set to automatically reject if I don't take some action on it. And so the next section is also a reporting area, and so I'm going to make this a little bit larger just by clicking on the one little icon there, and we'll see I've got what appears to be some type of report here with no data. Well, that's because my data is not, I don't have any cash today. All of my cash is sitting up here in the year 2027. So I planned ahead, and there's my graph for cash. So this business analyzer kind of area is really designed also for folks that might not need or want to see the exact kind of down to the penny type reporting. And so, yes, we can still present dollars and pennies, but sometimes people just need to see a snapshot of what's happening under the hood here, and a graph is okay to present that data. And so here, it doesn't take somebody with a 10-year finance degree to figure out that this says cash, and that's a big red line trailing down. That's not probably the way that we want our cash to go. And so that kind of alerts me that, hey, there could be a problem here. And so Microsoft has created a couple hundred of these, just slightly over 200 of these charts and graphs that they include with the system. You can use theirs like I am, or you could edit theirs. So you could do a save as and change theirs up to your own liking and use a modified version, or you could start from scratch and create your own. And so I've just got a few examples in here of what they have built. So here's kind of sales by state, and this shows me kind of based on the grid here where the bulk of my revenue is coming from. And of course, there's kind of the speedometer type chart here. And again, if I set this date up to where my actual data is, then this should actually echo back, yep, flips to the other side and finds a number there. And so this is helpful, and I'm a Dynamics user, and so I probably don't necessarily need to see a graph because I can actually see the raw data, and so I don't need a chart to tell me what the numbers are. Well, the real beauty of this is not to look at it inside of the accounting system like I am, but the real benefit, I think, is looking at this outside of the system. And so I can get my browser over here on your screen. And so here I've just opened Internet Explorer. This works on Chrome or Safari as well, but I have the same access here. And so we'll get it to go there. Takes a few seconds. And so I'm going to look at that same chart, hopefully through my browser. And keep in mind that if you're looking at it on your browser, that means that you could see it on your phone. So you could see this on your iPad or your iPhone or any Android device. So up to you, whatever you're running. There's no really restrictions at all. So here's the company we're in today. I happen to be in the finance folder, and you'll notice that I have access. Again, I don't have any security being applied, but if I wanted to see payroll data, I've got a number of reports and some charts and graphs that I could run on my payroll data, but I'm going to stick to the finance area. And so here I could actually run trial balances. I could run fixed assets reports. This is all out of the box, so it just has to be hooked to your live data. But again, you can copy these or create your own without any limits whatsoever. If I go into charts and graphs, and so charts and KPIs, I should say. So here's all the charts that Microsoft has built, and I think this is the one that I'm looking at on my home page there. So if I click on this, it takes just a few seconds there to go figure out what I want. Well, of course, again, I don't have any data today, so I have to change this date up to where my data is, and then refresh the report. And so here you'll see the same graph is being shown as what you saw inside of the accounting system. So if I can get that to do something like that, you can kind of get the idea here that you're seeing the same version of the truth, so to speak. So whether you're seeing it inside of the system or like most people would view this through a browser, which is probably happening on their phone or their iPad or something. And so no restrictions at all to where you're viewing this. And so this is a good way to give people access to the underlying data without them being a Dynamics GP user. Okay, so that's kind of what Business Analyzer is. So My Reports area, I'll pick on that one next. This is an area for me to pull all my reports that I work with on a regular basis. So those things that I run kind of frequently, I would probably want to pull onto my homepage because I can execute that report then with one mouse click and the report will be displayed. Now I have all my reports set to go to the screen so you could see them, but you know, if I print this for whatever reason, I could direct it to go to the printer, and so with a click here I could send it out to the printer, or if I want to see it and print it, I could make that as an option too. And so this is just a list of my open accounts payable, and so pretty straightforward here. It's sorted by vendor, shows every open invoice or voucher that I owe for this particular vendor or groups of vendors here. And then down at the bottom at some point, I owe a lot of money here apparently. I get my totals and so forth. And so this is a kind of what I call the original style report in the system, and so there's no drill down or drill back or anything on this type of report, and there's still a few hundred of these that are kind of on the menu that a lot of people use, but these can all be modified. So if you don't like the way Microsoft has laid this out, they can be modified. You can also send these reports out if you want to package those up into a PDF and email them. The system will do that for you. You could send it out in text. That's not usually a very presentable report because it doesn't take an exact picture of it. The text reports could look a little crazy when they get converted, so most people don't do that. But if you have that Adobe that's required, or one of the free ones, and sometimes Adobe is the only thing that works here, but some of the free ones do. And so again, you want to try the free before you buy one type thing. But you could bundle this up into a PDF and send that out. If you do have to print this, you can just click the print button, and then any printer that your computer sees is available for Dynamics GP to print to. Now I do happen to have the Adobe installed, and so Adobe has a print driver, and so if you have a PDF creator that is also a print driver, you can print directly out to a PDF that way. And so this is kind of the older style report, but still you know, very usable, just no drill down and no nice graphics and so forth like you've seen some in my Business Analyzer. And so the quick links, kind of like the reports, the quick links are those areas that I spend most of my time in. So most of my day entering data or looking at data or processing checks or whatever it might be, I probably will put on my home page, and then with one click, again, I can kind of get into those windows. And so here I've created kind of a sub menu called our GP product tour for today. And I have a number of things there, and so the finance community, which actually you'll notice is opening here in my Edge browser. And so these don't have to be links to things in the system. This really can be comprised of things that you do. So if you go out to your bank's website frequently, you might want to put that link here. And the whole idea is that you don't have to kind of minimize the software, open a browser and find your shortcut and so forth. You just build that into your home page, and with one click you can probably handle most everything you would do. So the idea is that, you know, most of us don't need practice clicking the mouse nowadays. We've been doing that a couple of million times or more. And so the fewer mouse clicks and keystrokes and so forth we have to make, then the better off our days go. We have a cash flow calendar. It's not the most sophisticated in the business, but it does give us kind of a snapshot of money coming in. So if there's an entry in blue, like here on April 12th, I've gotten more money that day than what I've paid out or expected to receive and pay out. The red is the opposite, so I'm paying out more money that day, or scheduled to, than what I am expected to get in. And then of course the black number is just the running balance. And I can toggle over to future periods. And so here I can take a look at May and say, oh, it looks like Saturday, May 1st is going to be a good day. I'm expecting 44,300. So if we drill down on that, well, I can see, do I have any receivables that I might be collecting? No, it's not that. Do I have any payments that I'm expecting to pay? Oh yeah, I've got the April rent. So don't know why I'm paying it on May 1st. Maybe that's my May rent. So otherwise, I'm probably not going to have a happy landlord. And so there's 5,700 that is going to be due that day. And so kind of keep in mind, I'm kind of living back in April of 2027 here. And so this is May 2027. So I'm looking ahead on what cash is going to do for the next, in this case, month. Well, that's fine. That's 5,700 going out, and my May 1st shows I've got 44,000 kind of expected to come in. Well, I must have something else. So here we go. So on May 1st, I'm expecting to draw down on my line of credit for 50,000. And so I can double click that and see kind of where I entered that. Of course, this is not a payable per se, but it will affect my cash. So I have to be able to go to a place in the system and put those things that affect my cash that are not part of receivables or payables or payroll and so on. And it looks like on 5/15, I'm going to take $25,000 and buy a piece of equipment. Well, again, that's not in my payables system yet. And so I'm kind of projecting that is going to be spent on May 15th. So someday I might get an invoice in and then I can come in and take this out. So it's not double booking it or double dipping my cash. But this is just a little spot I can go to put expected changes in cash that wouldn't otherwise be in the system. And so the net of this 50,000 and the 5,700 rent is in fact the 44,300 net positive adjustment to cash that I'm expecting. And so this is forecast. This is not posted transactions. This is just what I'm planning on happening. And so, and again, you could print this off if you, for whatever reason, wanted to have that calendar printed off on a piece of paper. This is also a report that can be modified. So if you don't like the way Microsoft has made this look, I don't know what more you do to it since it's a calendar report, but you know, if your weeks start on Monday and end on Sunday instead of Sunday through Saturday, you could rearrange these columns and adjust this to your own liking. And so that's kind of a little cash flow forecasting system that's there. You could have unlimited bank accounts in the software, and so I've got a number here that I have set up, and here's a reconciliation that started. The idea today is that we grab the transactions from the bank on a regular basis. We don't wait for the bank statement to come in the mail at the end of the month. That's kind of the 80s or 90s way and earlier way of reconciling our accounts. But today, most people would just go get the transactions every day, download those, and then we have the ability to read that file that you download electronically and come in and tick off the cleared transaction. So you'll see it says electronic reconcile just for a few seconds there, where it goes and reads kind of my fake little file, and it comes in and puts the check marks on the transactions that have cleared for checks and deposits and so forth. Now, there's might be some things, a service charge or interest on the account, or if there's a wire fee or something like that, you might still have some manual adjustments to enter into the system that you wouldn't know about until they show up in your account with the bank. But what we don't like to see people doing is just waiting and making this part of the monthly close process, is to reconcile a bunch of bank accounts and come in and have to manually tick off transactions based on what you see on the bank statement. That's possible, like I'm doing here, but that's not a real practical way of spending time today. And so we like to see everybody kind of doing as much electronically as possible. Let's see if there's anything else. Oh, yes. So here, you'll notice that link actually brought a spreadsheet up. I think I had that actually open, so we'll do it from scratch here. So when I click on this, you'll see it launches Excel, and I have a template out there of a short journal entry, so not anything real complicated here, but sometimes we still do things in Excel, and maybe we're figuring out kind of complex commissions or bonuses or accruals or whatever it might be. Maybe you get entries from your outside accounting firm once or twice a year if they propose adjustments to your books. But somehow it seems like we do have entries that end up, or data that ends up in Excel that we want to get into the system here. And so if I have, in this case, a simple entry, I can come in here and I can copy this, so just a standard Windows copy type function, and then I come over to my Dynamics GP system, and I'll use another navigation method here and navigate off the top menus and open up my journal entry screen. And when the journal entry window opens, there it is, you'll see a number of red fields. So those things are required, and they're not required to be red. I just have them turned on red so you guys can see those. But as you're learning the system, or you're learning a new part of the system, and you are opening the different windows and so forth, these things that are, in my case, in red, allow you to see what's required for you to actually process a transaction. Everything else is optional, at least optionally based on the system requirements. You could make something required, so you might have company requirements over and above the system requirements, so you can turn other things on red or a different color if you want to see company requirements versus Microsoft kind of system requirements. Some people do it in multiple colors. So, but that's why you see the red on the different screens here. And so here, maybe I'll just put monthly entry, and because I copied over in Excel, I've got the Excel paste button here, and all I have to do is click paste, and then that entry is brought from Excel over into my JP journal entry window. And so that's a small one. I probably could enter that not quite that fast, but I could enter that pretty quick. But imagine if you had, 20 or 50 or 100 or 500 lines to enter there. Well, you surely wouldn't want to key that in, because unless you're really, really, really good, you're probably going to miskey something or forget something, or get a wrong account number or whatever it might be. And so you really don't want to waste time kind of on the keyboard. And so that's a simple way to just copy and paste from Excel into the transaction entry window here inside of the software. And so from there, I could post that, or I could put that in a batch and save that for later. Maybe I want to come back and work on it at some point. And so I'll just get rid of it. And so close that out. Let's see, the next two things here are allocations. And so the software does have the ability to do fixed and variable allocations, and fixed is probably the simplest. And that means that we're gonna allocate an account. So here's my rent expense, starting with 000 and my account 6180. And then it looks like I had room for a sub account if I needed it. Now that account formatting, that's just my sample company. We do have room for 66 alphanumeric characters in the chart of accounts. And so I would hope that 66 is enough for everyone. And you'll see I have kind of 3 segments here, so 2 dashes creating 3 separate segments. We can actually go up to 10 segments, so we'd have 9 dashes that created 10 different segments. And so that is kind of an upper limitation of the system, as well as the 66 alphanumeric characters. That's generally been enough. As Caitlin said at the beginning, I've been working with the product for 22 years. I've never run into anyone that needed more than 66 characters in their chart. And so hopefully that there's no one on the call that breaks my 22-year trend here. And so here, what I'm telling the software is, hey, when I put something into this 0006180 rent, I don't really want it to stay there. I want you, Dynamics GP, to go back and reallocate that based on these fixed percentages. And so the percent sign doesn't look like it's showing up through the meeting here, but that's 5%, 5%, 35%, 20%, and so on. And that equals 100% down at the bottom. And so I set that up. It's fixed until I come in and change any of these percentages around. And in the system, every time I use this 0006180, the system will reallocate based on these fixed percentages. And so that's one way to do allocations. Another way is more variable, where we don't know what percent we're going to use. We want it to be based on something else. And so here I've got utilities to allocate. And so kind of the same idea, 6190 now, and I'm reallocating into my different departments or divisions, or could even be separate companies, but my 100 through 600 front part of my account segment here. But you'll see there's no percent there. It's not fixed. But when I highlight one of these, this other area opens up, and I'm telling the system for variable, I want you to go look at some other account to figure out how much to put in the Division 100 utilities account. And so what is this other account that's called breakdown account here? So let me drill down on that. And you'll see in this case, I'm using square footage to allocate utilities. And so the system handles non-financial accounts just like it does financial accounts with debits and credits. We handle unlimited, we call them unit accounts. And so that could be things like headcount by department or company, division, number of fixed assets. You'll see here I had one set up for armbands. So we had showed someone how to use this based on the number of armbands that they sold on a particular day. So that was in the amusement park business. Square footage, number of telephones, and so on. Anything you can imagine, you can put in as a unit account, and then you can pull that into the financial statements. So if you want to divide sales by square foot, like if you're a retailer, that's a kind of an important number. If you want to divide sales by head count, for example, you could easily do that in your financial reporting. But you can use these in allocations as well. And so here I'm allocating utilities based on square footage. And that probably doesn't change every month, but I could go in and make an entry to this unit account for the square footage for each of my divisions or departments. And then the system every month would use those numbers to figure out how much of the utilities to allocate into each department or division. And so here you'll see I don't have an entry in most of the months, but period 4, which is April here that I'm in, I do have a number here, and so that's the only one I have for the year because all my data is pretty much in the month of April. And so, in actual practice here, you'd have something in every month or every period, most likely, for each year. And you can do journal entries into these unit accounts, just like you can into the dollars and cents kind of debits and credits type of account. So that's a couple of ways to do allocations. Okay, and so as we kind of finalize the home page here, you'll see I've got other things that I have the ability to do. So if I'm using payroll and kind of the human resource part of the system, I could actually enter time. And so this is really designed to have an employee log in. Of course, they would only see really this time management piece. They generally wouldn't have access to anything else. There's a very, very light type user that an employee can use to log into the system and put in their time, put in their expenses, initiate purchase requisitions like we looked at the beginning of the session here. That can all be done with like an employee kind of self-service user, which is a very inexpensive kind of light type user that you can actually give those folks access to the system, but they can only do those kind of restricted things. But you know, you kind of see some of the menu choices here. If somebody needs to come in and update their direct deposit information, they might want to view their pay stubs. So maybe they're getting ready to go take out a car loan and they need their last few paychecks, and that looks like it's not coming through the meeting exactly right, but it looks good on my screen. And so if I wanted to take a look at this pay stub, direct deposit stub here, I could reprint that. Of course, you know, if you were processing payroll in the software, you'd have access to this. And so this gives the employee the kind of that self-service capability that they don't have to call the payroll department and say, hey, I need a copy of my last 3 stubs, or, you know, whatever it might be. I need a copy of my W-2. You know, you could do that, but that's kind of a waste of HR's time. You really want the employees to be more self-service. And so, you know, if you process W-2s in the software, you send those in electronically to the Social Security Administration, upload those to their website, and electronically just post the employee copy out onto their homepage when they log in, then, you know, you technically could get out of the paper handling business for payroll processing here. So, you know, if I need a copy of my last few W-2s, just like my pay stubs, I can go retrieve those right off of my home page here. So the last part of the page here, requisitions, we kind of talked about. I do have that one saved. It's the one that I was the originator and also the approver. And so that one is still kind of stuck up here in my workflow task, telling me that requisition number 13 needs approval. Well, I was the originator of that requisition, and so I do have one here. You'll see it's showing me one that's kind of pending action. And so, you know, as an employee self-service type user, I could come in and create a requisition or see the status of my requisitions and so forth. And I can see down here where I've entered a few more, and some of them have actually been purchased, so that means they were approved and somebody bought this stuff for me, so that's good. And I can see the PO numbers that were generated, even though I don't have any access to those. I've got one saved, and then the one that we looked at is shop supplies, and that's been submitted. Who the approver is, at least the first approver. There might be 10 more after this person, but it tells me that it's, you know, it's waiting on this guy right here to approve it. And so kind of gives you an idea of what's going on with your requisitions. The last area is of my homepage is the Power BI piece, and this is Microsoft's kind of most modern reporting tool, and that's Microsoft Power BI. If you haven't heard about that, you will at some point. This is a tool that's available, hosted directly from Microsoft, but of course there's a link back to Microsoft Dynamics, and so you can integrate your Dynamics GP with the Power BI reporting, and they've created several reports or dashboards for us, and we could use those. So you see one of the dashboards here, a sales dashboard that I have pulled onto my homepage. And of course, that's reading my Dynamics data live and producing that little dashboard for me. I've created these reports myself, and so you'll see quite a difference between what Microsoft did and what I kind of hacked out here in about 15 minutes one day. A couple of weeks ago, I've got customer profit and I've got vendor payments. Kind of hard to see there, but if I go to my Power BI app, so I'm going to launch that here kind of to close things out, and we'll see on my other screen here the Power BI dashboard is up and running, and it should let me drag this over. All right, it's still refreshing there. So this will also give me the ability to see the reports that I've created. Of course, this is where I created the reports, and allow me to create new ones or to edit anything that I have done, and so on. And so for some reason, this is not wanting me to drag this over where you can see it. So There we go. Just needed a little coaxing. And so here you kind of see the same dashboard. And this I did not create, so to be clear, this was Microsoft's work. These are free. You can download those for Dynamics GP. And so this is just a kind of a financial, sales, purchasing, and inventory dashboard. So any of these you can use. And of course, as you toggle through the different periods here, you see the graphs and the charts kind of changing accordingly. And so, and you can do that with each series if you have data in the system. And so this is the Power BI tool. If you haven't seen it, it would be worth checking out. Even if you don't use Dynamics GP or any other Microsoft products, this tool is still available. The version you're seeing right now that I'm using is free. And so that's the low cost option. If you do have a need to have something more sophisticated, so you might have other people that you want to share these reports with, so you might want to build reports and share them across a bunch of people at the company type thing. There is a paid version from Microsoft. The paid version is $9.99 a month, and so that's the high cost option, is $10 a month. And so, you know, either free or $10, but you get everything. And so at some point I might pay the $10 and just see what more I can do with it. But this is quite a bit, really, for the free version that I have access to. So lots of reporting options, lots of different tools there to analyze data and to look at the data and so forth. And so just keep those things in mind. The last area is I'm going to leave my home page finally and toggle over to a different section. So I'm kind of going into my financial area. And of course, I can toggle over into sales, where everything with sales gets pulled onto kind of the area page there. If I flip over to purchasing, everything to do with purchasing is brought into view here with one click to execute anything. But I wanted to bring up the Excel reports. And so there's about 200 Excel reports that Microsoft has built that are also available. And so this is yet another way to analyze data, to get to the data. And it looks like through the meeting, this also is doing the little scrunched up thing. So looks beautiful on my screen, but unfortunately not through the meeting. So that may be just a timing thing. But there's a number of things here that I have the ability to go see. Oh yeah, that looks really good coming through the meeting. So don't know why it does that, but that must be a GoToMeeting thing. But I can run any of these reports in Excel. And so, you know, if I wanted to see, I'll just grab the top one there and we'll click on View. And this is all pre-built stuff out of the box. Again, would have to be hooked to your data, but very easy to do. And so this is just a dump of accounts payable transactions coming out into Microsoft Excel. And so, and from here, you know, you could do whatever you would normally do in Excel. If you're looking for certain vendors or certain dollar amounts, or you want to build some kind of chart or graph or something off these, that's all for you to do, but all of the hooks are there, and of course it's Microsoft, so as you would expect, there's a lot of hooks into the other Microsoft products. And so very last thing, and then we'll take some questions, is maybe flipping over to sales, and I'll bring up a customer here just so you can kind of see. I'll just grab any old customer here, and we have the ability to see all of our data for customers, vendors, inventory items, kind of in what I call a 360-degree view. They call it an all-in-one view. So everything to do with that customer is available to me here. You can see quotes if I do them, orders, invoices. Of course, if you don't do some of these things, you can just turn off or on the different columns. So really up to you on what you want to see here. But the nice thing about this window is if I want to see, well, what's in this cash payment right here? Well, I've got the blue here, so that's my drill back. I can drill back into that window, and it's grayed out, so I can't change it necessarily because it's kind of history, but I can see it. And if I want to see what invoices that customer paid on this payment, all I have to do is tick the box here, and then I can see the invoice. In this case, it was just one, and that was actually tied to an order. Now, if that would have went back to a quote, or if you think about vendors, If I look at my payments, that would go back to the vendor's invoice that I entered, maybe back to a purchase order or a purchase requisition. And so all of this is hooked together, and the need to get up and go digging through file cabinets and drawers and boxes full of stuff should really be eliminated. And so it is very rare that you have to go pull out a hard copy of something. In fact, a lot of people scan those things in, and they're not keeping a lot of hard copies around today. So with that, I think we'll go back to Caitlin and see if we have any questions, but that's kind of a very, very quick synopsis of what Dynamics GP 2018 has in store. And if you're an existing user of the system, hopefully you saw something new. If you've never seen the software before, then hopefully you saw something that might work for your business. So Caitlin, any questions pop up in the chat?
Hi, Brian. Yeah, we had a couple questions that popped up. The first one is, can sales invoices in an open batch be modified?
Yes, if the sales invoices are in a batch, they can be modified. Until they're posted, they're available for editing.
Okay, and then the next question, can GP 2018 handle multiple companies?
It can. There's no limit on how many companies you can have. I have just 2 in mind. You'll see we've been in this Fabricam company. I do have a company 7 here. But yes, no limit on how many entities we can set up at all.
Okay, so it looks like there are no additional questions. So I would like to thank you all for attending today's presentation. And thank you, Brian, for giving us a great overview of Dynamics GP 2018. And I just want to let everyone know, if any later questions do come up, please feel free to reach out to either Brian or myself. You will be seeing a follow-up email from me with a link to the recording, and both of us will be copied on that email. So thanks again, everyone, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.
All right. Thanks, Caitlin. Bye.